Imagined pain is real. It's called psychogenic pain. Psychosomatic pain would be like pain caused from excessive stress. Uh, but psychogenic pain is pain that you really don't have an explanation for. There's nothing in the body that's causing it, but it is assumed that something in the mind is causing it. Now, what you can do about it um, outside, I don't have the greatest answers here. I can tell you it's a thing that goes on, especially with trauma cases. It is much, much more likely. Like the number just skyrockets. Um, Recently, like I have been looking more into this, and I've become more interested by it. It started with I was listening to this thing on Florence Nightingale, and like Florence Nightingale was in the Armenian War. This is when war is starting to modernize, like get really bad, but like the medicine hasn't caught up. They're still essentially using like Civil War medicine, and it's relatively modern warfare. I and she's only there for like 2.5 or 3 years, something like that. But it's a rough road, and she sees a lot of bad stuff. And she actually had to do a great deal with like modernizing medicine and stuff, Florence Nightingale. But for the rest of her life, she reported like miserable pain. Like she couldn't do anything. She was incapacitated quite often by pain that doctors could find no reason for. And that got me interested in the idea of trauma causing pain. And years ago, I mean, this is going back almost 20 years now, I was talking to a therapist, and she mentioned the idea of molecular memory. She was into a lot of like hippie ideas, but she mentioned the idea of molecular memory, and I found it quite compelling. Like the idea that the body, like where the pain of things happen, the body remembers and rebuilds different. And very recently, I started reading a book called "The Body Keeps the Score," and it is all about how trauma affects the brain and like the changes, the structure of the brain, what happens when a person is traumatized. It specifically like largely focuses on soldiers, children, and women trapped in abusive relationships. But especially children and soldiers, because like with trauma, the idea of being trapped, helpless essentially, like you can't get away no matter what you do, is like the worst kind of trauma that one can endure, because it sets you up to be willing to endure, and you're just okay with it. You're fine with pain. You just accept that that's the way life. In fact, I would always say like things hurt. That's what they do. Uh, like just when I used to work construction, I had my idea was that I can do something and it will hurt, but I know eventually after about an hour or two, my body's gonna say this hurts, but I'll just go numb. And after those 2 hours of pain, my body just goes numb and I can deal with it. And that's always how I dealt with things. I knew I'd go numb and then I won't feel anything until much later. And we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But the body keeps the score goes into a lot of stuff about how the structure of the brain is quite literally changed with everything. Um, all kinds of different areas of the brain start getting structured differently when significant trauma is introduced. And one of the main ones is psychogenic pain. Um, and I wish I knew more to be able to say, like, this is what you can do about solving it. But beyond telling you it exists, and I could never tell someone whether a pain they're feeling is from their mind or not, and that like would be up to the individual to discern. But I can tell you with myself, I know I feel a lot of pain, especially in my stomach, that isn't real. I know 100% it's caused by my mind. But I know a lot of other aches and pains are caused by my mind. It's going back like 5 years now. I caught myself where whenever I felt slightly bad in my head, I'd tell myself I was sick. And so anytime anything hurt, there was a voice in my head that told me I was sick. And it happened so quick that it's not even something I would notice really. I remember exactly where I was when I first like caught it happening in the act, because a lot of stuff in the mind, especially in trauma cases, goes on in the background. You're not really aware of it. You don't really take it in. Things that developed from childhood, you structure things upon the earlier stuff you learned. And when the earlier stuff you learned is kind of jacked up and damaged and wrong, it, you know, the structure won't necessarily fall over, but it will be based upon a weak base, and it allows real wacky things to start happening. And that is, a very simplistic explanation of, trauma and psychogenic pain. Although, like, psychosomatic pain would be caused by stress, and post-traumatic stress, it seems like that would then be, psychosomatic stress if it was, brought on by trauma. But I'm just sticking with psychogenic pain right now because I don't know enough to distinguish. And when I read stress, I took it to mean, like businessman stress, like pulling his hair up because the stock market's down or something. I don't know what them squares do. Uh, I can pretend I do, but but beyond, telling yourself the pain isn't real, like this isn't actually happening, and it's something like I've changed several things inside myself doing this by consistently telling myself it's not real, this is fake. I have never done it with pain, and I'm interested to see if it can be done, because I am very interested to see like what can be done to affect change on it, because this is something I've felt for at least 20 years, and it when it was first starting, there was no medical explanation the whole time. There was no medical explanation. It's never gotten worse. It's just stayed the same way for like 20 years. And that's, they still can't find any reason for it, and I'm pretty sure. And I've changed so many things about myself, so many things about my diet, so many things to try and affect change on it, to discover what is the cause. And it's just constant nagging pain in my stomach. And I'm certain it is brought on by trauma. I am, at this point, I'm like 100% sure. And I'm going to do what I can to affect change on it. If you believe that you suffer from psychosomatic or psychogenic pain, I cannot recommend that book, The Body Keeps the Score, enough. It is eye-opening. I wish I knew the material better to be able to recite it right now. It's one of those books where I'm gonna go over it like 100 times and find out all the names of the people he cites and go look at their research so I can actually explain it to myself and other people. But right now I can't. And all I can do is tell you that the book exists and the information is out there. And really, if you have issues where you relate to what I'm talking about, you really should go check it out. Well, wait a month and I'll do my own videos on it. But hopefully by then they'll be better. Look, I know the videos haven't changed much, but I'm working on that. I have a plan. I do. But I just wanted to do a thing on psychogenic pain and say imagined pain is it manifests as real pain. And it is very difficult to distinguish that this pain is something that is being caused by my own mind. It doesn't seem like the human body would betray itself that way, but yeah, the human body is treacherous when it comes to the self, especially when negative stuff has been conditioned into you from a very early age. It's bad for the person. I remember I was reading these studies from the 50s about these kids. They essentially called them feral children. The families had never taught them how to speak, never taught them to use the bathroom, never taught them to do anything. They were just wild. Some of them ran around on all fours, even like a simian. And after they were taken out of those, after the children were taken out of those environments and brought into a situation where they were taken care of, the outlook is grim. Like never learning to speak, at least at the time. I don't know how much has changed nowadays, because at the time, like psychiatric and psychological stuff was pretty cold. There's some dark stuff that comes out of the 40s and the 50s and prior. And just the way they play mind games with people about very serious stuff. Yeah, that's dark. But so right now, I can't tell you that much about changing psychogenic pain. I wish I could, and I feel bad that I can't. But, you know, I hope giving people, if anyone is interested, you know, I hope giving people at least a book to go in. But the acknowledgement that it's real, you know, a lot of it, it doesn't seem like it could be real, especially to like a logical mind. You know, that doesn't seem like something would happen. But as I said, the body is very treacherous, especially when, you know, systematic, you know, pain, humiliation is used. Like it sets the mind up in a very, very bad way. And if nobody distills like productive behaviors into you, because even with trauma some people do function, but usually it's because like some other element of their families or whatever made them do it, like rote memorization, like they just go through the motion. People work because that's what they were taught to do, but if you weren't taught to do anything, like it's all foreign. And in trauma cases, like trying new stuff, the brain does not like to do. It stays, it's like that's making yourself vulnerable, and your brain will fight that tooth and nail. At least mine does. And I mean, this can be anything, things as small as washing the dishes. Like I had to force myself. It was so difficult to do. And there's no reason it should be difficult. I know what washing dishes is. I've done it as a job. But doing it in my own apartment for myself, like it was a problem. It was its own whole thing, and it was so frustrating because it was like such a simple thing. But resistant. It's difficult to explain. I don't want to get lost in it on a thing about psychogenic pain, and it becomes about my trials and tribulations with dishwashing. But anyway, yes, the book, The Body Keeps the Score. You're going to be hearing about this a lot if you watch any of these videos, because this is something where I will probably read it a couple hundred times. But imagined pain can be real, and it can manifest in very real ways. I know this wasn't the most informative video, and it's probably not the most helpful thing in the world, but good day.